Okay. Uh, so, as Roberta said, I am Chris Lawrence. I was born in 1973 in Charleston, South Carolina. I grew up in a family of newspaper people. My grandfather founded the newspaper in our town, and my father was the editor. Okay. So, one year for Christmas, I asked my father for a camera, and he got me a Kodak Instamatic 110. Yes, it took very shitty pictures, but at least an 8-year-old who's already learning how to composite, sorry, not composite, composition is not too bad for that age. So 2 years later, for my birthday, I asked my father for a 35 millimeter SLR. So he got me this K1000. And he began to teach me the basics of photography. This is probably one of the first behind the scenes images I've had of myself. I want you to take a look at the guy standing behind me in the yellow shorts. This is the 80s. So this is the photo that I took. That is my father standing there by the trash can that you can see is completely in focus. And my mother's rear end, who is totally out of focus and very bad taste of composition. However, my father helped me learn how to focus. This camera was a split image focus. I don't know how many of you remember split image, but for a stigmatic kid, it's pretty hard to see that to start with, so I had to learn. So the story is I actually never studied photography. I went to art school. And as Roberto said, I went to art school in 1991 and 92, Istituto d'Arte d'Oristano, here in Sardinia, where I currently live. I really enjoyed it. I've always grown up doing art. My mom was taught me to paint, and so I always have been in an art environment. However, my father said photography would never pay the bills. So I went to art school and became a graphic designer. However, I was able to do an understudy with a professional photographer in our town who basically taught me everything about dodging and burning in prints, developing film, and all that has to be done with black and white film. So after I got out of school, I worked for my father for, oh gosh, I guess 8 years as a graphic designer and a photojournalist. To that point, in 1999, I decided that I wanted to move back to Europe, so I moved to Madrid, where I became an art director in Young & Rubicam. Young & Rubicam is one of the major ad agencies in all of the world. They have a big office in Milan, in Tortona? No, it's near Navigli. So,
Tortona.
Okay, thanks. So I started working as an art director, but had a chance to start doing product photography for the agency. In Madrid, we had Movistar, which is like telecom, and I wound up taking all of the Nokia 3310s and all the different mobile phones that they were selling at the stores from 1999 to 2005, basically. So in 2005, I decided to quit my art director's job and go full-time commercial photographer. The worst part is that about 6 months later, my father died of cancer. So sorry, get a little choked up always on this. He never really got to see me in my full-blown commercial photography career. It's been a rough ride, but I am paying the bills, so it's not what he said. Oh, I'm sorry, I just skipped this. So having studied art, I have always really paid a lot of attention to Rembrandt and Caravaggio and all the very famous, important painters who were realists. and I never studied lighting. So thanks to all those years of looking at paintings and artwork, and having had a little bit of studies, books, and tutorials back in 15 years ago weren't as big as they are now, but I had a chance to assist other photographers and basically just started really working hard. This is a self-portrait that I took of myself with this wall that you see behind me in my studio that I built. I think this must have been 2 years ago. So I kind of wanted it to be like a dark room, so I put a red light and, you know, the photos and all that kind of stuff. So so we're here to talk about commercial photography. As you can see, I pretty much do very particular types of jobs where I have usually an agency or an art director or a client who says, I have a product and I need to sell it. Some give you a brief, some do not. So you have to come up with an idea. And I'm basically going to talk to you how I get to that point of doing the best I can. So what does it take? Having the best equipment doesn't make you the best photographer. However, when you have a nice Nutella pie, you can explain it easier. How to become the best. Oops, I just messed up. Sorry. Sorry about that. So basically with this Nutella pie, I cut out a piece of what I do know, which is exposure, depth of field, composition, the basics, etc. And going from there, the next piece is what I know I can learn. And this is I think the most important part of being good at anything is that you understand that you don't know everything. And I am the first to tell you that I do not know everything. So I always am studying to learn more about everything. But the point of this is an example of astrology photography or wedding photography. This is something that I know I could do. I could probably make money at it. I don't have the experience, but I know if I tried, I could work with someone else as a second shooter and learn how to become a good wedding photographer. The problem is I hate wedding photography, so don't worry, I will not become concorrenza. I can't think. So what's the rest of the pie mean? Well, to start with, it's delicious. This piece represents what I do not know. This is a different concept of how to explain the techniques that others use and the how do you say it? You can look at a photograph and more or less tell what has been done, but you don't always know everything that has been done to that photograph. Okay? So there's the wow effect. Does everybody have a wow effect or know what a wow effect is? The wow effect is like when you do something and you're like, wow, that's awesome. That's great. That's beautiful. That's something that I always try to get out of my clients when they're on set. I want to see that reaction because I know that I'm going down the right road. If they don't have that reaction, I need to go back and think about what I do not know. And remember, where does the good stuff come from? The delicious stuff. From thinking outside of the box. So when you have a problem, you have to think outside the box and say, okay, what do I need to do to make this work? And this is the creativity in what a commercial photographer who is good or one who is awesome or one who's mediocre or just basic. Those basic photographers usually don't have a lot of creativity and don't think outside the box. They just say, okay, I want to make money, so I'm going to shoot a whole bunch of images of e-commerce, and this is going to be a white background and just blah, 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 blah. There's no creativity in that. If you do a good still life of a for e-commerce, it should take you more than 10 seconds of photo. It should take you a lot longer because you're worried about the details. You're worried about the creativity of the image that you're looking at. So many people I find, or lots of people ask me, the typical, what lens do you use? What should I buy? And they're like, want to spend money on buying equipment. And I'm always like, well, you know, the equipment doesn't make your vision, you do. And one thing I've found over the years, I've also been guilty of buying and buying and buying, and I do have a lot of stuff now, but I can justify it now. But when I was younger, say 15, 20 years ago, I tried to have all the different Nikon, the newest Nikon body, the newest Nikon lens, and whatnot. And I found out that I generally shoot now with a 50mm lens on my Nikon, always. And on my medium format camera, almost always has an 80mm. I looked in Bridge one day and saw that my 35mm medium format lens I've had for like 12 years, had only 1,800 images shot on it. And I was like, well, I guess I should sell this. I don't use it because that's not my vision. My vision is through the 50mm lens. And it took me a long time to realize that. So basically, good equipment does make good images, but it doesn't make you a good photographer. Okay. Roberto, I think we could stop at this point and see if anyone has any questions before I go into a gallery of images and start explaining different images.
Let's try.
Okay. No questions.
Te l'ho chiuso io per farti vedere la faccia.
Ah, okay. Does anyone have any question as to what I've said? Basically, how I envision. One thing that I do a lot is if I have a big job, I might be traveling for that job, but later in the slideshow, I will show an image that I shot in Milan when I still lived in Madrid. And I spent 3 days in Madrid setting up the shot before I went to Milan to the studio to shoot for Nike, because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to have every detail correct before I even set foot in Babob Studios, no? Babob? Anyway, a studio in Milan.
Okay. Let's see some sample of your work.
Yeah, that Felix Reed. Baobab.
Baobab.
Yes, I've shot there many times. Okay. So should I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here on the left is 2 images of the next image that I'm going to show you, just to give you an idea of thinking out of the box. The client asked me to shoot a portrait of his client inside of an apartment that he's he has a business that restructures apartments. So he wanted it to be inside of this under construction area, and the idea was to look like he had just built it. So as you can see in the top photograph, there's a lot of junk and a lot of dust and dirt and bricks everywhere. So thinking out of the box, I'm like, okay, I need to shoot the background and then shoot him in the studio because I cannot control all the small details in a dirty environment. So as you can see, I shot him on the white background. There was a flash in each of the eggs, and I think there was a total of 8 flashes. There was a big flash like the one you see behind me that mimicked the window light. And then there was several other ones who came from the front just as a fill flash, but very low power. And then there's a flash behind him that was shooting onto the white wall to create the light that's on the door. That's all fake. That's all done in post-production, but that's thinking outside of the box. These are the types of things that when you're given a problem, to be a good creative commercial photographer, you need to think how to solve a problem, because most of the time you're giving the worst conditions to work in. Okay, so this image on the left is the one I was speaking about that I practiced for 3 days in Madrid before going to Milan to shoot this image for Nike when Wesley Sneijder played for Inter. And then we have Mr. Buffon on the other side. That was actually for a magazine. It was shot in a hotel, and they wanted a superhero. So obviously I had to, once again, think out of the box and figure out a way to make him look like he's being a superhero. So I used some blue colored gels to make it look like nighttime, and he's out to save someone. This was an advertising campaign for an eye doctor for cataract surgery here in Cagliari. I actually shot 3 TV commercials and still images for this, and this was my favorite because my Rolleiflex is in it, so I got to show it off. I never use it, but I still got to show it off. So here, once again, on the left, this is also another image studied because I have never shot a person of color, and I knew that I was going to have to shoot them dressed in black and with their dark toned skin. So I set up in the studio at home to practice and to understand the differences. And obviously you can tell the guy in the middle is darker. So basically what I did here was to light the center with the main flash. Just point the center is pointed to the middle guy so that he gets the most power onto his face, whereas the other 2 get less. I hope everybody's understanding this. This is a pretty basic technique, but honestly, having never shot a person of color in this situation, I was very nervous. So I really wanted to make sure that I had this right, and I only had like 20 minutes to shoot a ton of different images of these 3 runners. And this was at Monza, the F1 Speedway, or whatever, Internazionale. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, on the left is an image of Coach Zeman when he was here in Cagliari. I did the typical double exposure of him looking into the mirror, one dressed as a sardo, and the other him being a coach. Wound up being a very polemic image because Cagliari got demoted to Serie B that year. So Not too much to this image other than I like to try to mimic natural light setups, and as you can tell, there's a window. However, I did flash because this was a very, very dark room. This was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, shoot on an airplane. There is no room to move around. And I think those 1800 shots that I talked about using my 35 millimeter medium format lens was all on this airplane because you just cannot move anywhere. And they want all these big pictures, but most airline images are shot on a stage, and this was actually shot on a brand new airplane which arrived the day before in Madrid from Toulouse, I think is where they build Airbuses, correct? And we were there for, I think, 18 hours and shot a total of 25 different images for this campaign for business class and economy class for this airline, which is now defunct. The hardest part about car photography is knowing the right time of the day to shoot at, and it is at 10 minutes after sunrise. And you have 30 minutes of light to get 20 shots off. And it is the craziest in the world. Most of all the automobile images that are in movement are almost always still. It's all post-production. We do that on purpose because it's too expensive to shoot a car in movement and get it tack sharp. Don't know if you've ever seen, but they use a big arm that comes out from underneath the car, and the camera's attached to the car, and you're basically rolling it at 5 kilometers an hour, and it makes it look like it's in movement with a longer exposure. But that arm costs like 20,000 euros for most shots these days. They do not do that anymore because it's cheaper to do it in post-production. Same here. This was at 6 o'clock in the morning. 10 minutes later, and the sun was too high, and then there wasn't that beautiful sunlight coming in. This is a colleague of ours. I don't know if you guys know Luigi Corda. He, in 2009, shot all of the Centurion people in Sardinia. And this was taken just about a year ago. No, actually, it was in May last year. Porsche did a interview of him because it was the 10 years after his first book, and he was redoing his second book 10 years later of all the Centurions in Sardinia. So Porsche came down, and we drove all around the island shooting all kinds of images of this 400,000 euro car. Luigi has a Volkswagen Polo, and he was scared shitless driving this car around because it had like almost 500 something horsepower compared to his Volkswagen Polo of 75 horse. And this is actually a real shot. There is a little bit of retouching of background grass because there was some things that we had to get rid of, but those are actual sheep. This is not a fake shot. It was shot with the car moving. So this is one of the few. Okay. So this was actually, the car was actually shot at the dealership. I was up on top of the roof of the dealership shooting down. And when I shot, I shot the background first and then took it to the computer. And as I shot with an overlay of the background so the car would fit in perfectly. And that's how we do a lot of these shots. We shoot the background and then overlay the image in the computer, and you see if you need to change your angle or turn or tilt the camera to make it look perfect. And also, very important thing is keeping the sunlight in the same direction. Very important. As you can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this shadow is real. It's actually the real pavement from the parking lot. And it's almost perfect with this one. And that also has to do with the time of the day. I always write down what time of the day I shot the background plate. Oh, that's not true. You can actually see it in the computer nowadays. And I keep that in mind so that I shoot with basically the same direction and time to be able to make the shadows look as real as possible. Okay, this is the last image. It's nothing particular about it, just a clean portrait of Jeremy, who's a pro rider for Yamaha. One flash with one assistant and a camera, nothing else. Oh, well, I mean, I did put the helmet in the right place and that kind of stuff before I shot, but as far as post-production, there's nothing to this image. It is straight out of camera like this. Okay, Roberto, that's the last image.
Okay. Oh.
So now I would love for someone to ask me 100 questions about commercial photography. Equipment, techniques, anything. I hope you guys understand me. I don't speak with a Southern accent because I've lived in Europe for 20 years now, and I've learned to speak more clearly, but I might not speak that well. Because if I spoke like my mom, I'll give you a taste. My mom speaks like this because she's from the South, and I really hate that. I guess it's kind of like the difference between the North and the South in Italy as well. I mean, Napoletano and Milanese have a very...
Going to Texas for work makes your life very interesting. When you assume that you can handle American and you land in Texas,
yeah,
you think again and you say, what did I do wrong in the last few years speaking with people in English and mastering English, or assuming that I was mastering English?
Yep.
No,
I have, sometimes I have a hard time when I go home and understanding some of the people, and most of them always like, oh, where are you from? And I was like, I was born here. I grew up here. I went to high school here. And they're like, no, you didn't. Like, and these are my high school buddies' kids. And they're like, no, you're not from here.
Well, the food is great. That helps.
Yeah, but it makes you fat. Oh, one thing that I would like to mention, my portfolio is pretty structured. You see basically this very few things. However, I do a lot of food photography. I love it. I have a lot of fun, but I do not sell to anyone other than people who know me. Meaning that I have quite a few clients here in Sardinia that I shoot food photography for them. But other than that, like on my website, you'll never see that because I want to do car photography. That was always my passion from my very, very, very young age. And I unfortunately cannot show you the last job I did because it hasn't come out yet. I was actually stuck in Torino on the 11th of this month, sorry, not this month, last month, when we went into lockdown and had my flight canceled, and I had to travel to Rome to get back to Cagliari. And I shot a 3 million euro Pininfarina. They're only making 5 models of this electric car, and we shot it in Torino. And that's why on my website you see very few things, because that's the work that I want to do. And I don't do weddings. No weddings.
Great.
Lisa, Miss Franco.
Okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay.
Someone's asking on the chat, do I do my own post-production? Yes and no. Depends on the job and depends on the money. I would love for not to do it ever again, because I get bored with it. After like a day worth of sitting behind the computer, I get really bored. And sometimes you don't do your best when you get into that situation. But in the past 10 years, I moved to Italy in 2010 after the economic crisis in Spain. Since then, I do as much as I can because budgets are not as high as they used to be. So I hope I answered the question from Fra.
So you have a question, okay?
Yes.
Hi, Chris. So
Hi.
did you see some difference between the advertising market in Madrid and in Milan? So there are something that change a lot between.
Yes, there is a difference in style between Italian photographers and Spanish photographers. I don't have that. I have a different look, and remember, I am an ex-art director. So I also see things where most photographers, like I automatically see negative space for where a title or where the campaign stuff goes, you know, the text. I automatically see that when I'm shooting, just from having done it so many years. However, I do have to say one thing. I have done very little advertising for Italian agencies in Milan. Most of the jobs I do are for international agents or agencies. Like the job for Pininfarina is not for Italy, actually. It's for London. They called me from London to shoot it. Yes, the factory is in Cambiano. No, it's the town next to Torino. But the actual agency is outside of Italy. So, because I have all my website in English, I do not have one word of Italian on my website, and I get a lot of jobs that way. Because most of the art directors and art buyers from outside of Italy Google in English, not in Italian, strangely. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. No, just to know, because I live in Spain, so, and you know, I was interested to if the market in Madrid, do you think is stronger than in Milan?
Pues mira, en Madrid está muy jodido el tema de los trabajos para los fotógrafos. Sorry, I just had to get that in there because I'm was in Madrid in October. I try to go once a year, and I think in 2020 I'm not going to be able to go. So I'm pretty upset. But I lived through the financial crisis, and just to give you an idea how things went for me, in 2007 I invoiced 200,000 euros. In 2008, 30,000. In 2009, 15,000. That's when I decided to. Well, I also met a Sardinian girl, so I moved back to Italy.
Okay, but your clients are still outside of Italy, so
most. I have a lot of local clients, but they're small. They're not big jobs. But
okay.
I mean Sardinia.
Okay.
Sardinia.
But I saw in your website that está representado de the agent is a Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
No? So So don't you have a work in Spain or so?
I do one job a year, maybe.
Okay.
But when you have an agency that's pushing you, they generally ask too much money, so you don't get all the jobs.
Okay.
Like they called me to shoot for, I can't remember the car company, in, I think it was in Barcelona, and they sent me the presupuesto, and it was like 25,000 euros for me, and I was like, guys, that's not going to fly. Nobody pays that anymore. I mean, if they have that kind of money, they are hiring the most famous car photographers, not little old me in Sardinia.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
De nada. ¿Vives en Madrid?
No, en Barcelona.
Ah, Barcelona.
Yeah. Pero
Okay.
no.
Any more questions? I think there's something else that came up here.
Hi, Chris. Very cool stuff. It's Domenico from Milano. Just a question from my side. Basically, if I will understand, you keep your website completely in English because you want to keep agencies mainly from outside of Italy. How much time you spend for market yourself instead of producing new stuff? I mean, you spend more effort to get in touch with the customers instead of creating stuff? Or what? Thank you.
Well, there's also someone else who's asking, how do you market yourself abroad? I kind of quit spending money on marketing because I have spent so much in the past. And like I said, in Google, thanks to the fact now all you guys are going to know my secret that my website is only in English. I am #1 usually on a Google search in English. So I don't really have to do anything. And plus, by the way, my website says I'm in Milan, not in Cagliari. That's very important. That's very important because the big jobs are there. And so, however, many years ago, when I moved to Italy in 2010, I started with wonderfulmachine.com. I guess I could write that in the chat. Wonderful. Oh, no space.
Archive.org.
Okay, this is a directory. If you guys open it up and look at it, you will see that it's where a lot of magazines. I've done the job at Monza with Nike, came through Runner's World magazine, and they found me through this directory. I'm not on it at the moment. I've lapsed and forgot to do the annual payment, so I need to get back on that. It cost me like 300 euros a year, and the image for Buffon came through that. Sometimes, oh, I also shot La Suora Cristina that won The Voice. She also, for The Guardian, they look through this directory and it tells you that so many photographers are in Milan, or they're so many miles or not miles, kilometers away from Milan, and they contact you if they need to shoot something in Milan. Okay, so what's this? Oh yeah, Wonderful Machine. So if you find photographers, they have a thing here, but if you, I think over to the no, is it you, Roberto, that's doing this? Okay, go, no, go back. Go back. Okay. Do you see there's a camera on a arrow to the right? Destra su? Una macchina fotografica? I think if you click on that, yeah. Are you a photographer? It's very expensive if you live in the United States, but if you live in Europe, they do special packages that don't cost that much. And there's a about membership over here on the left. I recommend this because I've done a lot of cool jobs. I haven't made a lot of money from it, but the 300 euros it cost me a year, I always made it back. And with the night job, it turned out to be, shot 2 different times. I think it wound up being almost 10,000 euros total for that job. But there was video, there was 2 different times going to Monza. So this is a very handy tool. I basically said that it's good because it does not cost a whole lot. I have marketed myself with Production Paradise, with some others that cost lots of money and have gotten no jobs from them that I know of. Yeah, that one there. And my agent in Spain actually is very, very involved in this. I can't remember your name, the guy that's in Barcelona. These guys are actually in Barcelona. This is a European directory. It's good resources. There's a lot of good imagery. Showcase magazine that we're seeing right now is really cool because you can, it has everything. It's commercial, it's travel, fashion, beauty. As you can see, global advertising. It has a lot of good things. Someone's been snooping around in behind the scenes. The runner's world, yeah. So there's another thing about the marketing yourself abroad. I have had my website, my hosting where I have my website, I have had since, I think, 2001, chrislawrence.es for Spain. Then I switched. I still have it. If you write it in, it'll take you to where the website is now. And I also have .eu. Then I found out that I could get the .ph, which I really hate. But since my Instagram, Facebook, everything's Chris Lawrence PH, I said, okay, I'm gonna get .com because it's the easiest and it's most international. International.
First, making a quick check on domain authority, I see that you have just 1.2 as domain authority, so you don't have a very high domain authority. Besides of that, your website is ranking quite high. I've seen also that your website is WordPress based, so you did a very good job. I mean, it's not fancy engine behind, but still is ranking quite high.
Well, I think it has to do with the 20 years that it's been online, more than
But
anything.
But still, the domain authority is not that big, so that high. So it means the content somehow is making the difference there.
Well, that's good to know because I having been an art director, I do my own WordPress and I really hate it. It's terrible. And I have no idea what you're talking to me about, but analytics and all that stuff, I don't pay any attention to it. So, and I am really bad about social media. Oh, this also makes me come up with another thing that's very important to me about commercial photography is that most of my colleagues locally know that they can call me and I will help them. I'm always there if they need anything, equipment, whatever. I've always been very disponibile. However, I learned, when was it? About, I guess from 2013 to 2016, I was an ambassador for Elincom Aproma, Phase 1, Capture 1, and Wacom. those things may have helped me also with my internet stuff, but I don't know. But what I found out was my clients don't give a shit about that. The only people that care about that are you guys, and you guys don't buy anything from me. You don't pay me to do anything. However, that gave me a really good relationship with all the guys in Milan. Frame Photo, Grange, and Aproma. So if I ever need anything, I always have it to my, so I can always call them up and say, hey, can I grab the 150 megapixel digital back? Or can I have some pro photo for this? And like somebody was talking about the behind the scenes for Runner's World. Well, that was a good job for me because I made a buttload of money on the fact that the client paid for digital camera, medium format digital camera, 100 megapixel digital camera for 2 days, where they paid 1,500 euros. Well, I didn't pay for the camera. They gave it to me for 2 days for free, and I made 1,500 euros off of it.
Good deal.
Yeah, that's the only thing good about being an ambassador. And Andrea Dati, who's was Moffat now's Frame, he always makes fun of me. He's like, my favorite American with a Sardinian accent, and always saying bad words in Sardinian. So that was also very important for me at the time, but then I realized it's a waste of time. I can't keep up with the obligations to do social media and videos. That takes a lot of time and energy, and all these influencers, I think, are people who just basically make money off of selling presets, AdWords, Google, YouTube. They're not photographers. They don't make money as a photographer. I really don't think that many of them actually shoot real jobs that get paid real money.
Different kind of job.
Yeah, but they make it sound like if you do what they say, that you'll become famous and have a good life. And it's not that easy anymore. It used to be easy. Anyone else?
Yes, I have one more question. How you come with the concept together with the customer?
That's a good question, because it has happened to me several times that an ad agency has contacted me to bid on a job, not get it, bid on it, and they want me to write a treatment. Are you familiar with what a treatment is?
No.
A treatment is a written document, words, like a letter, that explains how you are going to shoot the campaign. You have to have a mood board. You have to send images of the colors, of the feeling, and they choose you on that. And that is sometimes the most intimidating thing, because you're like, okay, I know what I want. This and it's also like, well, shit, didn't you look at my website? I mean, that's me. That's my work. That's the way I am. And you can kind of see that most of my work has the same style. So sometimes they ask you for what you would do, how you would approach the thing, and then sometimes they give you a brief and says you have to do this way, and then they're very, very strict with that. So it's kind of 50-50. Half the time you're able to do what you want, and half the time you have to do what they want. Okay. Domenico, I think you had your microphone too.
Yes, I've seen. Lower that.
Okay, cool. Come on, you guys. More questions.
I've got a question, Chris. It's
Go for it.
Sabrina.
Hi.
With how many people do you work for a shooting?
Great question. The minimum number is always 2. I never go anywhere without an assistant. Basically, because I usually am traveling with a lot of equipment. I generally always take my own camera and lenses. Lighting, no. Like I have my assistente di fiducia in the north of Italy, who, poor guy, drove from Brescia to Torino during the lockdown. He was kind of worried. I was worried he wasn't going to make it to Torino, and he had to be there the next day for the work. But always have an assistant, and it's almost always the same one, whether it's in Sardinia or in Madrid or in Milan or the north of Italia. When I go out of those 2 countries, if I have the budget, I take one of those with me because I know them, they know me. I don't have to tell them anything. That's very important to me. I want an assistant who knows how to unload the cameras and the computer and all that, where, I mean, they start thinking like me. Okay, that's minimum on every job. It can go up to 15. I've done jobs where I've also been on set with the TV spot. In Madrid, we did a TV spot in the middle of Madrid. I think we were almost 30 people just for one actress. But there was a lot of gear. There was obviously several makeup, hair, stylist, assistant makeup, assistant stylist, assistant hair. Everybody has to have, because a lot of times people don't realize, but we have a lot of suitcases to carry. And then obviously there's models. Like, for example, usually we'll have a driver if that's needed, because sometimes my assistant needs to be with me, because like I've shot from the back of a car moving. When I shot the Porsche, we shot it on the road. We didn't have time. We had 2 days to shoot a whole bunch of stuff, and we filmed, and I shot out of the back of a van. So there was a driver, there was a two other video guys, and then, but generally, I guess you could say a good estimate would always be an assistant, makeup / hair, because they can, if there's not a whole lot of people, they can do it in one. A stylist is very important as well. On big jobs, there's also usually a producer, who's the guy that takes all the shit. It's the guy who has to put up with me when I get in a bad mood because I haven't eaten in 8 hours and I'm getting shaky because I have no food in me. Other than that, oh, then there's also, sometimes there's someone who does scenografia, who has to build sets, and that, you know, it all depends on how much money the client has and how much the idea of the job is. I even, when I do my personal projects, usually take an assistant with me. That means I have to pay, I don't pay them the day, but I do obviously pay them their lunch and the beers afterwards and all that. So, but that's also because I have assistants who always work with me. So they're glad to do that. And they have fun too. I mean, that's one important thing, is having fun. Just see that my assistant just wrote, he's watching, so. Ciao, Giorgio. Yeah. Yeah, the bags are usually pretty heavy. We do carry a lot of heavy stuff around. Yes, the client is always, Beniamino is asking about, I think he meant client, it says committed, but I think you check the image before you finish the photo shoot. Generally, I shoot everything tethered to the laptop or to a bigger computer on set, whether we're outside or inside. So the client is either looking at the computer or an iPad. So they are always seeing everything. The last job we did in Torino, the the art director was in Munich, and the marketing director who was with me on the shoot was actually FaceTiming the whole time, everything, and showing him the computer and showing him the car and all that stuff. So yes, generally we leave with most of the ideas already checked. However, if it's a huge composite where there might be 50 images, they just have to trust you.
Ok, Chris. Grazie.
Grazie a voi.
Qualche altra domanda che è rimasta incastrata in un angolino?
Chi?
Non lo so, chiedo. Qualche altra domanda incastrata in un angolino? No? Ok. Grazie tantissimo. Entro domani ci sarà la registrazione di questa chiacchierata e della scorsa che ancora non è andata su, online a registriamo.org. Grazie tantissimo, davvero.
Grazie a te.